welcome back to our 60s and 70s horror film and fashion series. And I am so excited today to talk about the horror film that we are going to be talking about. It is one of my favorites. I low-key have an obsession with just the whole story, and I'm just really excited to talk about it. So let's get into it. Now, I have a question for you guys. Have you ever seen some flies in your house? Maybe a couple of them, and then automatically been like, my house might be possessed. This video is for you. Yes, we are talking about the 1979 horror classic based loosely on a true story, Amityville Horror. If you're new here, I'm Ashley, and I'm a lover of all things 60s and 70s. The fashion, the movies, the horror movies especially, the music, and everything in between, just not the values. And I am so excited today to talk about the movie Amityville Horror, the film itself, and of course, the fashion. Now, just a slight disclaimer, I am unfortunately, my allergies are just, they're killing me today. Like, I'm dying a little bit. So if I do seem a little stuffy or my nose seems a little bit red, that's why. That's life. But I still wanted to film this and I'm excited to film it, so we're going to do it. So let's get into it. Now, let's talk about Amityville Horror, the movie. Now, here's the deal, a little backstory. In Amityville, New York, it was a very quiet town until it wasn't. And this film is based on a true story, loosely. 1974 was the year everything changed for Amityville. It wasn't just a quaint town, but now known for a haunted house, a world famous haunted house. Now, how did this house become world famous for being a haunted house? Well, it actually started years before when a whole family was murdered in the middle of the night and one lone son was left alive. The family, two brothers, two sisters, a mother and a father, all murdered in their beds and all laying face down. No one heard a sound, no one tried to escape, and they were murdered by their oldest brother, Ronald DeFeo, with a shotgun. And nobody heard that? That's weird, right? It's eerie. Now, fast forward, and the Lutz family moves in. And then, 28 days later, they flee the house, leaving all their personal belongings. This is the start of a horror movie. And it is. Now, the Lutzes, who are actually a family, an actual family that did live in this house, and the DeFeos were murdered in that house. But what happened after they fled was they didn't really know what to do. So they reached out to first just local authorities and second to parapsychologists. And one of those parapsychologists that were reached out to and down that pipeline, they found the Warrens, who are well known for the Conjuring movies and a lot of hauntings that they investigated. And whether you believe them or not, I think they're interesting. And honestly, I'm going to be real with you guys. I believe the Warrens. I think some of the stuff that they said was true. Do I think some was fabricated? Absolutely, for movies. Why not? But ultimately, what ended up happening is a team of parapsychologists and the Warrens went into this home, and Lorraine Warren is quoted as saying, it was the closest to hell she ever wanted to get to, and that the house was ultimately possessed. But she also said that it was possessed, but also that the factors to that house being evil also were families, certain characteristics that the families had, and that the Lutzes might have brought that on. And that's why people live in the house now. There's never been problems since the Lutzes left that home. No one has ever even said that anything weird or eerie or paranormal has happened in the home. They, in fact, have said the house is actually peaceful. So it really is this big thing of, was it a hoax or was it not? And for me, again, you can actually watch another video. I'm going to start a series on true stories. And that one is going to be on Amityville Horror. And I'm going to do a deep dive on the hoax. And is it true? Is it not? And what do people believe? And just dive into the facts. But for now, what you need to know is this is based on a true story. But once everything happened, they wrote a book And then the movie came out. And of course, the movie is extremely fabricated from the actual story itself. But today we're going to talk about the story and what the plot of the movie is about. Now, the house was possessed. The movie goes through 28 days of horror that the Lux family experienced in the home. From flies, voices, flying pigs, and red glowing eyes, doors slamming shut and coming off their hinges, and ooze coming from the walls. It's a cult classic that has, oh, so many sequels. And it does. Like, probably over 40 sequels. And they range from like Amityville Aliens to like Amityville, It's About Time. It's insane. You can just look on streaming networks and you'll find an Amityville movie. Now, here's the deal. The first Amityville movie was based on the book and loosely based on it. But also, too, it was the only movie that George Lutz actually was kind of a part of. After that, they kind of went crazy with the whole Amityville theme, and George Lutz George Lutz actually had sued a couple of those films and the rights to the story and things like that. And he was extremely against all the sequels and all the things that were kind of exploited from his story. So I like to kind of tell you guys that because this one is probably the closest to maybe the truth that we're going to see visually on screen. And the remake was absolutely nothing like the true story. The remake itself, that was the recent one with Ryan Reynolds. That one was definitely very much fabricated with the little girl and things like that. This one is the closest to a true story that we're ever going to get on film. Wah, wah, wah. So let's take a look at some standout moments from the film. Now, first and foremost, the beginning, the creepy music. It's just like iconic number one in horror like theme music. If you are into horror, you will know that music that it's from Amityville Horror. But also too, it's just very, very eerie. And then it pans to the house itself, which has these really distinct eye-shaped windows. And it makes the house even creepier, almost like the house has a presence of its own. Now, fun fact is that the house that was used in the movie is actually not the true Amityville house. This is kind of like a house they found that looked similar. And the house now actually has different windows. So one of the owners ended up changing the infamous eye windows into regular windows. So hopefully that people wouldn't come and visit the house, but people still flock to that house. And it doesn't matter. They've even changed the address of the home and people still know where it is. And I actually have visited that home. I really wish I could find the pictures from that. But I did actually go to the Amityville house and see it live in person, and it was creepy, I'm not gonna lie. But it is in a very suburban area, which kind of makes it less creepy because in the movie it definitely looks like it's kind of far away from other houses, but it is extremely close to other houses, and it definitely makes it, I think, more creepier that it was a house that was in this area that was a really beautiful neighborhood. And it was very unsuspecting that something like this would happen. So now next up is kind of like the first part of the movie where it does showcase the DeFeo murders. And it basically showcases not fully, but it kind of shows you in clips and with thunder like rolling and things like that of Ronald DeFeo going into the rooms and killing his family. And it really is the way that it's shot and the thunder and the lighting. It's like scary. And knowing that this was a true story, that this really actually happened, it does freak you out a little to think about that. And it is an awful tragedy that happened. And unfortunately, so many lives were taken that night. And no one will ever know what happened truly because the only person living that knew what happened and went down that night was Ronald DeFeo. And there's so many stories surrounding him. And again, if you want to know all about that, make sure you check out my upcoming video, The True Story of the Amityville Horror. Now, that scene itself is creepy because it is based on that true story. Now, later on in the movie, it does go back to flashbacks of this when the Lutzes are touring the home. And as they open each bedroom door, it flashes back to Ronald DeFeo killing someone in their sleep, which again is super creepy because you got to think the Lutzes did actually tour this home and like they knew that this home was the DeFeo home, that people were murdered here. And what were they thinking while they were touring it? Were they creeped out? Were they, you know what I mean, thinking about these murders, or were they just looking at this beautiful house? Like, it's just crazy to me. And if I knew that there was murders in a house, I don't know if I could live there. And I know that can seem silly because houses don't like murder people or anything or have memories, as George says in the film, but like still that feeling, I think it would freak me out. And also, they kept all the DeFeo's furniture, a lot of it, and that's a little eerie to me too. So, I don't know. I thought that was a creepier part of the movie. Now, one of the scenes that is iconic and known in this movie, and I think, again, I mentioned this before, the flies. The priest goes in to bless the house. And this is, again, an iconic horror scene. And he's blessing this one room, and the door slams shut. There's a bunch of flies. Flies are swarming. They attack him. And a voice says, "Get out." And that priest bounces. He's like, "I am out." He doesn't even say anything to the family. He just leaves. And it is unsettling because that did happen. It's loosely based on what truly happened. So if you do any research, you find that that was something that happened, not to the extent that the movie shows, but it's something that actually did happen. And it is quite like that's quite freaky to be honest, especially when it comes to having someone that is, you know, like a priest come in and they were spooked. Like that's like, probably shouldn't be here, right? Now, there is a lot of, and I've mentioned this before on this channel with horror. I feel like when kids are in horror films and kids are like a part of it, it can be creepy. And I just don't know why, but it can be creepy. And I think it's just the thing that like I feel like kids can like sense things that like we can't. And I don't know. It's just something about it that freaks me out. But there is a scene where in the little girl's room, Missy, the rocking chair is moving back and forth on its own. And that is creepy. And then Missy, you find out that she has an imaginary friend. And this imaginary friend is named Jody. And she's talking to this imaginary friend. And kids do these things, they have imaginary friends, but being in this home that people were murdered in, spirits could still be frolicking around. And she now has this imaginary friend, and you see that rocking chair rocking. And my mind went to it's one of the deceased children that's like playing with her. And you never really find out who Jody is, but it definitely is implied that it is not one of those children. It's a demonic force, which makes it even more creepy that she's talking to this thing.
She's nice. She tells me things too.
Yeah, like what does she tell you?
She tells me about the little boy who used to live in my room. He got hurt and he died.
What else does she?
Now, a lot of, I think, the scarier parts of this movie are creepier. I wouldn't say scary, but they're creepy. They're like, ooh, unsettling. Are to do with this imaginary friend and the little girl. And one in particular, when there's a babysitter that comes to babysit the little girl, Missy. And of course, little girl still talking to her imaginary friend, Jody. And the babysitter goes in the closet to get her like her nightgown or whatever, and the closet door slams shut, and you then see kind of little girl sitting there in the rocking chair rocking, and the babysitter is like, "Help, let me out." And you know, the door is locked, the babysitter's freaking out, and the little girl just sits there with a dead stare, and then the rocking chair is rocking, and it's almost like the spirit like locks the girl in there and is like keeping, you know, this little girl for herself. And it's just freaky. And the parents come home and they find the babysitter in the closet. The babysitter's knuckles are bloody because she tried to like bang her way out. She's freaking out. She freaks out on the little girl. She's like, "Why didn't you open the door?" And the little girl, blank face again, is like, "Jody didn't want me to. Jody said to leave you in there." And that to me is like freaky. Like, whoo! Like, I just don't like that. It's like, ugh. And it is a very like creepy, eerie part of the story. And in the true story, some of that is relevant. You know, the babysitter part, not so much, but the little girl having an imaginary friend and things like that. So it does make it a little bit more eerie. There's a scene where the little girl's singing in her room. The mom's listening from outside. And it shows you the little girl like singing, and the rocking chair is rocking across from her with no one in it. And then when the mom goes into the room, the rocking chair completely stops. And the little girl's like, "You scared Jody." And again, like that is eerie. Like this little kid is like talking to like this spirit, so to speak. And the mom really doesn't really know what's going on, can't really do anything about it, and like protect her child. I think that's super scary. So that was a big, like, I thought eerie moment in this film. And again, a lot of the moments in this film aren't scary, they're just eerie. And then knowing it's based on a true story, I think that makes it even more kind of like a chill up your spine. Now, one thing that isn't scary but stood out to me is there is a moment where the priest is meeting with other priests within his like congregation, and one of the priests is the mayor from Jaws. And I was like, "Wait, I know his face." And then I like looked it up. It's the mayor from Jaws. And I'm gonna do a little side by side here. He's in Amityville Horror. So not only is he won classic 70s horror movies, but he's also in Amityville Horror, a little small part. So I thought that was kind of funny. Now, a part that I thought was a little cheesy, but if you know, like you've read the book or you know like the true story, it is a part of the true story of Amityville Horror. And that's the scene where the mom looks outside and she sees a pair of red eyes outside the window looking in at her. And this is something that lets us say that actually did happen. And that's like creepy, even though the way it was shot wasn't like the greatest and it wasn't scary. Knowing that it was based on something that might have actually happened, I think intensified it more, to be honest. Now, I think the scariest parts are not knowing what's going to happen, especially in the climax of the movie, where it's getting down to near like those 28 days that the family stayed in the house and things are escalating. The house is getting like angry. They go through the house, praying with the crucifix. Things start kind of happening a little bit more escalated where they're hearing things downstairs in the middle of the night. They're waking up at 3:15 all the time. These like crazy things are happening. George is getting more irritable. He's like getting more violent with the whole family. And ultimately what you find out is that Kathy goes to the library. She does some research on the murders, finds out that basically George is starting to look like Ronald DeFeo and taking on the characteristics. So she freaks out. She drives home middle of a thunderstorm. She ends up coming home, finding George with an axe, running through the house, yelling. The kids she locks in a bathroom. She hides in like a corner. He comes upstairs, yelling for everybody. He's like hacking with the axe at the bathroom door where the kids are. They're freaking out. She comes out of nowhere. She tackles him, and basically he tries to kind of axe her. Then he like kind of realizes what he's doing, and he just holds her. And he realizes the house has some sort of hold on him. And ultimately at this point, a window breaks. Like the window breaks open, one of the eye windows. Thunder is crashing. Blood is running from the walls and the staircase. The family is like, "Let's get the hell out of here." And it's not, it's scary in the sense it's more like what's going to happen next? What's going to fly at them? And then you're thinking like, what really happened? Like, what was that last night like for this family in this house? Because like, it's scary to think that this might have been what happened. In the book, there is, information about what happened, but the Lutzes never wanted to go into detail on what exactly happened that last night in the house. So nobody actually truly knows what really happened that last night to the extent of like the kind of scare factor, like what really went down. So I think that makes it even more scary. And then the fact that they leave and realize the dog's there, he has to go back and get it. You're like, oh my God, why are you going back for the dog? But I get it because I love dogs. And then he comes back, but the door won't open and he has to jump out a window. And then they drive away in their van and the credits roll and say, George and Kathy left all their possessions in the house. They left within 28 days and actually moved to another state. And you're just like, what happened? Like, what really happened in this house? And I think that question lingers in your brain when you watch this movie and makes it 10 times more scary. And the fact that this was something that was like big news that a family like came out and said, like, yeah, our house was haunted. It was huge. It was all over. And so for a movie to come out based on a true story like that, this was definitely a creepy horror film for people to see because they were like, did this really happen? And what's true? And oh my God, if this did really happen, this is crazy. Most scary things were like outside of your home and your home was safe. And now you're like, is my home safe? Like, you know, I'm scared here, maybe. Like, ooh. And that's a scary feeling of feeling like you can't even be safe in your home. Now let's talk about the fashion of Amityville Horror. And there was some really great fashion. Now, this film was released in 1979. So what was the fashion like in 1979? It was really kind of a transition year from the late 70s disco glitz and then emerging punk and pre-80s minimalism. So some key trends were high-waisted denim, and you see a lot of that in this film. Also, tailored blazers, you see that too, and feathered hair, which was very big on the scene. And really, one of the reasons why I chose this movie is because I just remember the iconic fashion of Margaret Kidder as, of course, Kathleen Lutz in this film. I've always loved the fashion of her in this film. And remember, she is from another horror classic that we did talk about, which was Black Christmas. So if you love some good fashion and horror, make sure you check out the Black Christmas video that I did. So first and foremost, in the beginning, when the Lutzes tour the Amityville home, Kathy is wearing an amazing trench coat with a nice little brooch on it. Classic look. And these amazing high brown boots. They're about knee length, and it is just a very classic outfit. I love it. And like a trench coat, I don't necessarily like them, but the way she wore it with these brown boots, it was such a vibe. It was such a look. And really a good kind of example of some of the fashion trends that you were seeing in 1979. A lot of the time in this film, she does with her hair wear a lot of bows, and I really enjoyed that. That's one thing I always remembered about this film is I always enjoyed her hair. And in one scene, she has pigtails where she's kind of unboxing all of her things. They just moved in, and she has these bows in her hair. And the outfit is very cute too. She's wearing these high-waisted jeans with a slight flare at the bottom and a white button-up shirt. And she ends up putting a cardigan over that to like go outside later. But it's really a great laid-back 70s look that I appreciate. I love the denim in this movie, all of the denim Margaret Kidder wore. I love high-waisted, like bell-bottom jeans or even a slight flare. And she wears this a ton in this movie. And I have one pair of 70s bell-bottoms that I love, and I want another pair so bad. And there are a couple in this movie that I'm like, I would love to find that pair. Now, next up is she comes home from grocery shopping, and I love this outfit. It's probably, I would say, one of my favorite outfits that she wears in this movie. And it is a plaid skirt. It's a little bit longer, like a little tie, and she has like a button-up shirt like underneath it. And she's wearing knee-high socks. And I absolutely adore this whole look. It is like iconic peak 70s look. And the skirt. I love the skirt and that cute little tie. It ties the outfit together, no pun intended, but it's just an iconic 70s look. And I've always appreciated this outfit, and I've seen this film many times, and it's always one of my favorites that is definitely on my Pinterest board. Now, next is when they are going to the wedding. Kathy is wearing a like wedding outfit, but she again has like a little blazer on with a matching like skirt, and she has like a tie with it, and I absolutely love this. It was very popular in especially the late 70s to wear things like this where it was like a matching like tailored look and have like a little either like tie or like tassel, and I enjoy this look. I think it's really like it's like 70s chic, which I appreciate. Now, the babysitter. We can't forget about the babysitter. You know, she is wearing some epic headgear, but she has an amazing peasant blouse on, and that was popular, especially in the late 70s. And I loved this peasant blouse. I definitely don't have one, and that is one of the things that's on my vintage wish list right now is like a peasant blouse because I love them. You can wear them with like skirts, you can wear them or longer short skirts. You can wear them with a pair of shorts or a pair of jeans. And I think they're so versatile and super comfortable. And I just love the details usually that they have on the shirts itself. And then we have the psychic friend. She is the girlfriend of one of George's friends. She comes in and like notices there's something going on with the house. Ultimately, she goes to the basement with them and she hears voices. But she has this like really cool like boho chic look to her. Lots of jewelry, lots of layers to her clothing, and it was a different look from the look of Margaret Kidder in this film. And I loved that it showcases a different type of fashion in the late 70s, and I appreciated that. And it was not like crazy like fashion where you're like, oh my God, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Like the Velvet Vampire has so much fashion that you're just overwhelmed. This one is like subtle fashion, but you will love it if you are into the 70s fashion. You will be like, I love this, I love that, and you'll pick things out. But if you're really not into like fashion in that sense, I don't think that you'll be looking at that in this movie. You'll be more like focused on the story of Amityville and all that good stuff, which makes you watch it anyways. And if I was going to tell anyone to watch an Amityville movie, it would be the original movie. Like that one is a must watch. Like it may not be the scariest horror movie and it may not be the best, but it is a classic in the sense that it's based on that true story. You don't know what was actually happened in that house because you weren't there. And it just keeps you guessing. And again, it's that fear that you can't even be safe in your own home. Like, and that was the first time I think the public thought about that. And it wasn't like these monsters chasing someone outside the home. It was like your home could be actually the one that's like chasing you. So it definitely is a great horror movie. It's a classic. If you love horror, you've seen it and you know the music and those creepy eyes on the house, you know that visual right away, you'll say Amityville. And if you love fashion, like I said, it definitely has amazing fashion, but it's not over the top. So if you're looking for over the top fashion in 70s, I would say, and I may be biased, but I think the best fashion in any horror movie in the 70s was Velvet Vampire. Peak fashion. Such good fashion. Not a really great movie. It had its moments, but the fashion was there. So that would be what you would want to do if you are into fashion. Watch that one. Overall, this story is legendary. I think it will be something that will always be discussed in horror when you talk about horror of the 60s and 70s and in horror in general because it was a big deal at the time to have a family come out and say, our house was haunted. That had never really been done before. No one had like heard that before. And it was a big deal. So when the book and movie came out, it was peak like pop culture, and you have to definitely check it out. And if you're like me and you get fixated on things, you'll probably go down a rabbit hole of Amityville lore. And honestly, it's really interesting and there's a lot of information out there. And if you do want to go down that rabbit hole with me, I am going to be featuring a video coming out real soon called True Story Amityville Horror. So make sure you check that out. But until next time, thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell so that way you know when a new video drops. And also like and share. It helps the channel, which I appreciate. And I'm just loving building this community of people and hearing your comments, what you think, and kind of meeting new people that like the things that I like, 60s and 70s, and of course, horror films. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.